Good morning. How is everyone? Great, great. As Krista said, I'll be sharing some information with you regarding school counseling. First of all, I'd like to ask, how many here are from school districts? Okay, great. So the majority of people in the room are from school districts. That being said, how many school districts have a school counselor within their district? Okay, that's pretty good. I wish it was more, but that's pretty good, right? How many are aware that in Michigan, we still have a pretty high student to counselor ratio, which in actuality means that we don't have, and I'm probably not telling you something you don't know, but in actuality means we don't actually have enough school counselors to service our students in Michigan? How many are aware of that? Okay, so the number of people are aware of that. How many are also aware that if school counselors work together or collaboratively with parents, administrators, teachers, and students, they could make a positive impact on student achievement? Are most of us aware of that? Great. Okay. That being said, we do want to be aware of what persons should serve in the role as a school counselors, and for that point, what persons cannot or should not be serving in that role. There are four primary modes, if you will, in which a person can be credentialed as a school counselor. One is what most of us would be familiar with, which is the traditional route, and that is a person has a teaching certificate, so they've completed a teacher education program with a concentration in school counseling, taken and passed the school counselor exam on the Michigan Test for Teacher Certification, and thereby been certified as a teacher with the NT school counselor endorsement on it. So if I was to probably, ask how many people in here fall into that category, probably more people would fall into that category than the other categories that I'll share with you in just a minute, simply because that is the pathway that was available for many years, and in fact up until the year of 2000 when Bill 5740, Public Act 288 was passed, that allowed us to implement some additional school counseling credentials based on need and the fact that we needed more to service our districts in Michigan. The other credentials that we have available are one's called the Preliminary Employment Authorization to work as a school counselor. Another one is called the Temporary School Counselor Authorization. And then we also have what's called the School Counselor License. For the Preliminary Employment Authorization, an applicant has to be enrolled within one of our in-state approved university programs. They have to have completed a minimum of 30 semester hours and pass the school counselor exam on the Michigan Test for Teacher Certification in order for the in-state university to recommend them for that particular authorization. It is valid for 3 years, and it is non-renewable. The expectation is that within that 3-year validity period, individuals will complete the remainder of their program. So they may have at that point yet to complete an internship and some additional semester hour credits. And so once they've completed that, it's expected that they will either then be issued a teaching certificate with the NT endorsement on it, or they may be issued the school counselor license. We also have a counterpart authorization, if you will, for out-of-state applicants only, and that's called the Temporary School Counselor Authorization. It is valid for 1 year, and persons who are interested in that particular authorization would apply to our MOEC system that Krista mentioned to you, our online certification system, after they've completed the requirements of an out-of-state program. So again, this particular authorization is only for out-of-state applicants, and therefore they would submit an application, provide our office with their documentation so that they can be evaluated, and then we'll make a determination of their eligibility. We also have what's called the school counselor license. The school counselor license is for in or out-of-state applicants. It is a non-tenurable credential. Reason being, it is not a teaching credential. And so you may know it falls into the category of other non-teaching credentials that also do not fall under the Tenure Act. It is not impacted by any other credentials someone may hold. So even if someone holds a teaching certificate or let's say school psych or administrator certificate, the school counselor license stands on its own and is not impacted by those other credentials in any way. The license requires, oh, I'm sorry, let me back up. I'm thinking things in my head and moving ahead, sorry about that. With regard to the school counselor license, it is renewable, and you can renew the school counselor license by completing either 6 semester credit hours. Obviously, those credit hours should actually enhance your ability to serve as a school counselor. Or you could complete 150 sketches, those state continuing education clock hours that were mentioned to you, or someone could complete a combination of those two. If you'll notice, district-provided professional development was not included in that category for those persons who hold a school counselor license because they are not teachers and they're not serving in a teaching assignment. On another note, you heard me mention that these are the 4 primary ways in which a person can be credentialed as a school counselor. What you also want to be aware of is that there are 2 caveats or 2 exceptions, if you will, to someone being hired as a school counselor in addition to those 4 modes I mentioned to you. A school district may have a need and therefore they might apply to our office for a permit. So if our office is able to issue a district a permit, then that as well would allow someone to be hired legally to serve in the capacity as a school counselor. Another way is if someone is a holder of an elementary level teaching certificate, you may know those elementary certificates, certainly in the last 14 or 15 years, have the designation on them K-5 all subjects and K-8 in a self-contained classroom. Prior to about 14 or 15 years ago, there's some certificates that would have been issued at the elementary level that would have had K through 8 all subjects. Because of the nature of the way those elementary certificates are issued and those designations that I just mentioned, a school district could hire someone to serve as a school counselor under that elementary certificate that says K-5 all subjects, K-8 in a self-contained. They could serve up to grade 5, or if someone is a holder of the other elementary level, the K-8, they could serve, therefore, as a school counselor up to grade 8. Now, you might question, is that the best fit? Probably most of us would say, well, not really, right? Because you would know, like I would know, that persons hired under that scenario have not had the intensive training and knowledge and educational background that a school counselor that's gone through an approved program would have. So, you know, if you're a district and you get in that situation, you may just want to kind of, you know, weigh the benefits versus non-benefits of doing that. So in that sense, we want to remain mindful of hiring appropriate K through 12 personnel to serve as a school counselor.